So first off, it's truly an honor that you've trusted me with your time and attention. We're going to start with an existential question. Why are we all here? This is how I would sum it up. Authentication is a bit of a mess. It adds friction, and it can be bypassed. So it is literally the worst of both worlds. Passwords are hackable. We already know about all the drawbacks of passwords, rotation policies, complexity, bad practices. It creates all kinds of hassles for IT. But importantly, passwords take time as well. It takes 30 seconds, maybe if it's memorized, or if it's easily accessible from your password manager, copying and pasting. So since passwords are hackable, what if we add MFA? Well, there's an issue there as well. At one time, it added better security, but it also adds friction. It adds friction for the attackers. It adds friction for the users. So ultimately, because MFA is phishable, we're all vulnerable as long as we keep using passwords and or MFA. So this is why we're all here. We want to learn about passkeys. Maybe you're deploying them already or testing. I certainly hope so. Passkeys are secure, and they're easy. That is literally magical. Can you think of any security improvement that makes life more easy? I certainly can't. And they're faster, so it's a little both. They sometimes go hand in hand. But importantly, they're available now. So this has to do with the timing or the time required. I've actually made this up. It's called TATIN. I'm hoping NIST will make this a new standard. Time to access the thing you need. So we see the three categories that we've gone over already, and obviously MFA adds a lot more time, and yet we get even more secure, or the most secure solution, and that only takes 2 seconds with autofill. So passkeys are FIDO2. It's a security standard. They are stored in your Mac's secure enclave. If you were here 2 sessions ago for Apple, Speaker X, I should say, this is mentioned in depth, so it's good that if you're here for both sessions. This is probably the most important thing. If you remember anything, or maybe 3 things from today's presentation, we need to know what passkeys are for. They're not used on your Mac. They have nothing to do with Mac OS. They're used to access anything protected by your identity provider. In my organization, we're using Entra ID as our identity provider. So anything that requires a Microsoft login is something we use passkeys for. You can also integrate third-party sites such as Jira, Adobe, Salesforce, Dropbox, Business, Slack. Anything with a Microsoft login in front of it, you can use a passkey to get right into that resource. So we don't have to wait any longer. The future's here. We have all the tools we need today. Of course, you will have to work with your identity team if you have a separate identity team. For some of us here, you might be the identity team too. So you might hear passwordless a lot, especially from Microsoft. This is Microsoft's vision for enterprise authentication. I have some bonus content, if time allows, and we can go into what passwordless means for Macs. Platform SSO is Apple's vision for enterprise Mac authentication. And passkeys are the intersection or junction in those two worlds. So let's start using passkeys now. I want to go on the record saying passwords and MFA are the new binding. Okay, so we're here. This demo isn't a live demo because the users only see two things. This demo is a how-to set up an entire workflow to deploy passkeys. You can do this in production safely, all through scoping in Jamf. So we have a lot of requirements. The SSO extension and the Platform SSO extension cannot coexist. You should not put them on the Mac at the same time. We must remove one, then deploy the other. Even worse, I would say, or a bigger challenge, the Mac must restart after the SSO extension is removed and before the Platform SSO MDM profile is deployed. We cannot skip this. It removes things that we need to remove. And if anybody knows Sean Rabbit says so. So don't argue with Sean Rabbit, please. And if anybody wants to argue with me after, I will argue with you. Also, because everyone hates restarting, we have to enforce the restart. It's a challenge. So IT needs to make this as smooth as possible for our colleagues. Another challenge is the automation itself has to span across the restart. It starts before, we have to restart, it needs to continue afterwards somehow. And we really want the Macs to be running Tahoe. So some of you might be thinking we might need launch daemons for this, but we don't. We don't need launch daemons at all. So maybe we can turn some of these challenges into opportunities. Because we have to remove the SSO extension, what if we use that as the trigger for the entire workflow? So we can remove the SSO extension simply by excluding a group. And of course, everybody hates to restart. We have to enforce it. So to make that a little bit better experience, we use the Swift dialog message, and that will give our colleagues a heads up and allow them to close any work, or maybe they have some remote sessions happening. And then, of course, the Swift dialog message will be designed, because we really need this restart to happen. It will remain until somebody clicks restart now. And finally, at the bottom, if we're running Tahoe, the moment you deploy the Platform SSO MDM profile, a registration macOS notification pops up on the screen. So that makes things a lot easier. So we're going to leverage that. Okay, so before the restart, we've already mentioned removing the MDM profile. We need a smart group to detect that. And I'm making up names, of course. You can call the things whatever you want to call them. But for the sake of the demo, we'll call it ready for PSSO config. We need a policy to trigger the Swift dialog message. So it's triggering a script. And then the users click on the button and restart. So what do we need after the restart? This is where things get a little more complicated. After the restart, we need to deploy that Platform SSO extension MDM profile as quickly as possible. So we're going to kind of work backwards logically. How can we accelerate this process? So we will need a smart group, and we'll put our Platform SSO extension MDM profile it'll be scoped to a specific smart group. We'll talk a little bit more about the conditions for that smart group in a moment. We'll need to run a recon to get the Macs to join the smart group, but we only want to run that recon specifically for the Macs that are in the workflow. Running too many recons is bad. So the recon will be triggered by a policy, and that policy needs a different smart group, obviously. And so the conditions for that smart group are that the SSO profile has been removed and the Platform SSO profile has not yet been deployed. The other challenge if the Platform SSO extension MDM profile is scoped incorrectly, it will deploy at the wrong time. And then two bad things could happen. We'll have one of each, SSO and PSSO, on the Mac at the same time. Very bad, unexpected consequences. But also the Entra ID registration could kick off for the Platform SSO profile before we're ready for it. So we need to make sure that a smart group is used to deploy the Platform SSO MDM profile. And part of that timing is we need proof that the Mac is in the middle of the workflow. So how will we do that? So we're going back before the restart. These are criteria or components needed before the restart. What we're going to do is tag the Mac in some way and then have an extension attribute notice that tag. And we'll add this to the script that is launching Swift dialog. So you could use a number of methods. You could create a folder, you could create a file. If you have a plist already that you're using, gathering metadata on your Mac and storing it on the Mac, you could use a key in that. Any of those methods would work. In this demonstration, we'll just create a folder in the script. And so we can skip right down to the bottom. So we'll need an extension attribute that reads, in our case, the presence of the folder. So this is the workflow itself, what it looks like to IT. Not necessarily, it seems like a repeat of the previous slide, but this is the actual workflow more than the components. The components make this workflow happen. So we remove the SSO extension, MDM profile, the Mac joins the smart group, and actually, let me back up a little bit. In order to remove that SSO extension MDM profile, we add a group to the exclusions for that profile. We could also trigger the entire workflow from self-service if we, one, create a static group, two, add that static group to the exclusions, and then three, put a button in self-service so that users can add themselves to that static group. That way, I don't have to send an email, warn people that they will be upgraded to Platform SSO on such and such a day, which they will completely forget about if they read the email. They can simply go to self-service, click a button, and get a passkey. So that's the self-service version. That's my absolute favorite. Okay, the Macs, once we've taken that SSO extension off, the Macs join a smart group, and that's what we're calling it for the sake of the demo. And then once the Macs are in the ready for PSSO config smart group, they are eligible for a policy, which will trigger on the next check-in. So the policy will run the script. The script creates that tag, I'm calling it, and it launches Swift dialog and the message, which we'll see in a moment. And we have to include the part where the user restarts the Mac by clicking Restart Now. After the restart, we have a special recon, which runs as part of a policy, because that's how recons work. And we have targeted only the Macs that are in the middle of this workflow. So when we run the recon, the extension attribute looks for the folder we created, and then they join another smart group to which the Platform SSO extension is targeted. So within minutes, the Platform SSO extension MDM profile deploys really within minutes after reaching the desktop after the restart. And once the user clicks on register, then it triggers everything else that is built into macOS. We want to work hard so the users don't have to. So the users don't see too much. All they see is the Swift dialog message asking them to restart and telling them why we're asking them to restart. And then there's a macOS notification, and you click register, and the rest is already automated by Apple. So this is what the user sees. This is the Swift dialog message. It can be moved around the screen, but it cannot be, well, even if you try to force quit Swift dialog and know how to do that, it will trigger the restart. So it's going to happen. But we want to give people the ability to move the message around the screen, log out of what they need to log out of, save whatever they need to do, and then they can click Restart Now. So restart happens. And after the restart, once you reach the desktop, this is in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. I would have to call this a flaw or a bug, and I'm pretty sure there's feedback for this already. I just didn't happen to grab the number for the feedback. Unless you hover the cursor over that macOS notification, that register button does not appear. So if you have any comms going out to your users, any instructions, stress that. There are solutions for that as well. Kevin White has sudo, or sudo. But so far, we haven't had any trouble with this, but you really need to be aware of this and make sure the help desk is aware as well. So the rest of these are just part of the OS. Click on Continue. This one's really ugly, but whatever shows up when you authenticate to Entra ID, this is what will appear next. So your experience will vary. I do want to point this out, though. If your company is set up and users have passkeys on their phones, instruct them to click here. And you can sign in with a QR code that opens Authenticator and lets you use the passkey that is on your iPhone. It talks to the Mac over Bluetooth, and that is by far the most secure option. Or if your environment has already gone passwordless, you have to use this method because you don't have passwords. This is part of the pop-ups, the built-in messages to tell you that you need to enable company portal to autofill. And then obviously clicking on System Settings, open System Settings, where you can enable that yourself. And you've got a passkey. So this is how to verify. You go to users and groups, you click on your account, click on the I for info, and you will see that you are registered and you have SSO tokens. And so that's the workflow itself. So I have the extension attributes, the scripts on my GitHub. I spent a lot of time on Mac Admin Slack in this channel. Feel free to hit me up, or really anybody there. There's a lot of knowledgeable people on that channel. And since we have time, I have bonus material. What is the deal with passwordless? Right? Macs need passwords. So why do we keep hearing passwordless? Passwordless is Microsoft's vision of enterprise authentication. I mentioned this earlier. Learn.microsoft.com has 3,400 results for the word passwordless. Who wants to guess how many references to passwordless are in the platform security guide? Somebody already said the answer, but I'll give somebody else a chance. Is it more than 1,000? More than 100? 0. So this is my conclusion. Passwordless is a Microsoft term and has nothing to do with Macs or Mac OS. Does this help us? No. What does Microsoft mean then? And how do we use Macs? Passwordless is shorthand for phishing-resistant passwordless authentication. It's a security and identity strategy which specifies that only phishing-resistant passwordless authentication is used to access Entra ID protected resources. That's a mouthful. So it does not mean that we, in our environments, I should say, offer passwords and something else that's non-phishable. We don't offer an option. We literally don't have passwords at all. The only thing we are using is passkeys or something else that's not phishable, maybe YubiKeys or something else. But there simply aren't any passwords. They don't exist. That's where we need to go. That's where Microsoft is going, and this is the future that is really happening now. And so this is where, we have to bring our Macs, but, how do the Macs fit in? It's a Microsoft term. Macs need passwords. Macs are Unix. So this is where everything comes together and starts to make sense. The passwordless term does not refer to the Macs themselves. It refers to how the Macs access corporate resources. They access these resources in a passwordless manner. They use passkeys. So we are literally turning our Macs into YubiKeys, or turning our Macs into a phishing-resistant passwordless authentication factor. Do this with passkeys. This might have you thinking, what if we have passwords now? Should we sync? Do we put passwords on the new Macs that we are deploying? And we need to stop. We need to stop syncing. We need to get to a place where passwords exist on the Macs, but they don't synchronize to Entra ID, because now you're sending a password over the network. All the flaws of passwords in MFA are happening if you are still syncing a password from a Mac to Entra ID. You're actually making your environment less secure. So the future, or as soon as we can do this, is to start managing password strength on the Macs with the MDM spec, the way we used to do before Nomad and before Jamf Connect, and stop syncing the passwords over the network. And we probably want to reset the passwords or remove them from Entra ID so that they only exist on the Macs. So, made it. Are we out of time, or do we have still have time? Okay. This workflow is specific to my environment. I'm not here as a passkey expert. I've just figured out things. Well, I figured out what passwordless means. But the workflow is specific to my environment, so I'm not going to be able to predict what's going to happen next in PSSO. Or simplified setup, which was announced today, sort of. But if anybody has any questions, there's a microphone somewhere. And there it is. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and we'll get the microphone over to you. OK. Well, either I did a really good job, or some of you are just shy, and that's fine. I'll be here another 3 hours, not here, but in the building. So feel free to find me. Feel free to hit me up on Slack. I'll do my best to answer any questions. And the slides will be posted through the conference. And I'll also add to my extension attributes and scripts kind of like a one-pager of the workflow and how to set it up in your own environment if you wish to do so. But I certainly hope that you do deploy passkeys as soon as possible. Thank you.